It's tier list time. Everybody loves a good tier list. And Tower of Fantasy, I'm currently milking for views. And we got a lot of characters coming. And so we're going to be doing this while taking a look at upcoming characters. So, first things first, getting out of the way, the characters we already have. Now, these are all SSRs, so I'm not doing any SRs, just SSR units. So, just going to go in a line. Coco. Coco's a very good unit. She can heal with her 1 star. Pretty good heals too, because it follows you around just like Nemesis. She's practically an ice Nemesis once you hit her 1st star. She's fantastic for applying freeze. She has a really good kit, and she's a spear user. Where does Coco lie? I'm going to put her in A tier. Reason for this is because of her heals. She's a really good support, and she can do a lot. Once you get her stars, is a very, very important potent support unit. And later on in the game, when we get an ice synergistic unit, which we're going to take a look at, once we get that unit, Coco ascends to even greater heights, okay? Next up is Crow, okay? Now, Crow is arguable. You can put Crow in either S, A, or even down to D tier. And that's because Crow is super, super, super niche. Yes, I had to say it 3 times. As you guys saw, Doggy Phoenix, as you two saw, he's a backstab crit character, meaning he mainly uses stealth to dish out the majority of his damage, and if not stealth, air combos are about the best way to play Crow. And other than backstabs, there's a thing called a jumping backstab that you can do. Crow is a specialist, but if I were to consider him 0 stars, I'd put him in C tier. Why C tier? Well, because he has no real uses. His DPS isn't the best unless you're backstabbing or you're doing air combos. So he's just pretty mid. But I'm making this tier list as a whale, so I do consider stars. Considering him in his 6 star, I would put him above Coco. Huma. Now, Huma is a really good unit, at least especially for the beginning of the game. She's a tank, she does fire, and she does 10 and 10 in shatter and charge. So she can be used as an all-around just really good unit. And I put her as my first pick for good picks when I did my SSR Box video. Huma, I'm going to put above Coco, but just behind Crow at his 6 stars. Now, Huma is really good, but her DPS is somewhat lacking when it comes to like comparing it to other units. But that's not what she's used for. She's a tank. Due to that playstyle, even if she is C6, at least for what you're trying to clear content, up until you hit endgame, you don't really need the damage mitigation. You're not going to come into a lot of battles where you need to have a damage mitigator or a shielder, because you can practically just clear the entire game. At the stage of the game we're at right now, about 7 to 8 days after launch, Huma just doesn't really stack up because she doesn't find herself as useful. Next up, we have King. Now, immediately, I'm going to put King in S tier. Now, Walmart Deluxe may be a Walmart Deluxe, but he does some good shit. With his just 1 star, that's all you need. You do not need to get him to 6 star in order for him to be usable. His 1 star boosts his shatter to 14.3 from I believe a 12.5, and it bonuses his damage when he shatters shields, and that's practically all he's used for. Damage and shatter. That's it. But other than that, King currently is up there with the 2 people who have the highest damage currently in the game. So that's why King is up at S tier. After that, we have Meryl. Now, Meryl, although I put in high priority in my SSR Box video, I can't put her at S tier. Well, I can, but only if you get her 6 stars. And the reason for that is because, yes, she is the best tank in the game. It's the same argument for Huma. You don't need a tank for where we're at in the game right now. We're not at endgame yet, and we don't have very much content that is suitable for a tank to be in. Now, if we're talking purely for her charge damage and for her ice damage, you can put her at S tier. That's arguable. It's a pretty sound argument. But I put her in A tier And I'm probably going to keep her at the top of A tier purely because tanks are not yet needed in the game. Next, we got Nemesis. Already, Nemesis is practically the best unit in the entire game right now. Not only is she the current premium rate banner, but her kit is healing, support, damage buff, and especially for Volt units, there's a reason why she's S, and it's for a certain character and a certain playstyle that we're going to get into in a little bit. She synergizes really well with every Volt character in the game and can buff their damage, and already she does just a crap ton of damage. So she's really, really good. She dishes out a lot of damage, and she's a fantastic support, currently the best support in the game. So that's why she's S tier. Samir. Now, those of you who know me would think that I put Samir up here. But Samir, I'm not going to lie, especially in the future, she's nothing without a Nemesis. Samir is fantastic, but without Nemesis, she just doesn't deal as much damage as she possibly could. The synergy between Samir and Nemesis at this point in time in the game is game breaking. It's insane, the kind of synergy that they have. Samir, other than that though, by herself, standalone, is still an S tier unit. Now, why is that? She doesn't need any stars to be good, because all her uses are for dealing damage and for charge, so that way you can do your discharges. And she does that flawlessly, practically. She has the fastest and highest combo string in the entire game. She has an air attack, where she helicopters and you avoid practically all physical damage. And her E is a bubble that can stun. Already, that's a fantastic kit, and that's not even with her stars. And she only gets better with her stars. Even if she's 6-starred though, I still can't make the argument of her being better than Nemesis because she kind of relies on Nemesis to be that good. So moving on, we have Shiro. Now Shiro, if you know how to use her, could be a pretty good character. But sadly, Shiro, I'm going to have to put in B, maybe in C, and let me tell you why. Her C, if she's only 1 star or 0 star, she has little to no uses. She is outplayed by every other character. She's already power creeped. And although she's the only physical DPS shatter unit, she just doesn't have that many uses. She really doesn't. She does get cooldown buffs where she can lessen your cooldown after you hit her, I think it's 3-star. But that is the only time she gets useful. But as a whale, of course, I'm going to put her in B. Because if you get her stars, she does become useful. She finds uses in lowering your cooldowns. But other than that, that's really the only thing that she can really do. Moving on, we have Tsubasa. Right off the bat, Tsubasa's an A tier unit. I would argue with stars, I'd put her all the way up there. With stars, okay? With her 6 stars, or even with just her 1 star, she buffs damage, and then with her 6 star, she further buffs damage. That's already insane if you can get that in the game. Like all 6 of her stars, you don't need that much damage to play the game right now. You really don't. But once you hit endgame, Tsubasa is going to be really good just for pure damage buff. Without the stars though, I still put her over here because her kit is still very good. It's still very synergistic. And with Coco Ritter and with Meryl, if you have an all ice team, you're going to be dealing not only a lot of freeze, but with Tsubasa, you're going to be boosting Coco. And with Meryl as your main DPS and tank, you're going to be dishing out a shit ton of damage. Now, last but not least, for the characters we currently have in the game, it's Zero. Now, Zero, I would normally put right here next to Coco, but currently in the game, without his stars, I would have to put him dead last in A tier. And the reason for that is because although he does do good shields, he doesn't heal. He doesn't have his heal yet, which is one of his main pieces of his kit. He does some decent damage. He does apply a lot of fire and he's ranged, but he is mainly a support defending unit, but also doesn't really mitigate damage for some reason. He just kind of applies shields, and that's why I have him at the back of A tier. With his stars, with his stars, I would put him right up next to Huma. But again, that's because then he can heal, then he can better apply shields, then he does a bit better damage. And that's kind of the only way that I can sum that up. This is all at 6 stars. So if you 6-star every one of these units, this is what the tier list would be. The S tiers are Nemesis, Samir, King. Nemesis, Samir practically need each other to be good. King is good just by himself. A tier, top of A tier is definitely Meryl. Even when you 6-star her, you don't need to 6-star her in order for her to be very, very useful. But she's already out of the box really good. Crow, you need his 6-star for him to be up here. If he does not have his 6-star, B tier. Easy. Tsubasa at her 6-star is a buffing goddess, okay? And she can dish out, or she can help to dish out a shit ton of damage if you play the game well. Huma is going to stay here, and whether she's C0 or C6, she's going to be right here because she only necessarily gets better. You know, she's already really good. She just gets better. Zero and Coco, interchangeable. You can kind of argue for either one. Doesn't really matter because their kit is fairly similar. It's just that Coco leans a bit more towards damage while Zero leans a bit more towards defense. Shiro, like I said, without her stars, she's C tier, dude. Like, I want to like Shiro a lot, but she just doesn't have the kit that really makes her stand out, you know? And I feel like a lot of that is because she's physical damage and just, you know, kind of got left in the water because we don't really have any other physical damage weapons or characters. So there's that. So if I were to switch this around for C0, it would look something like that. Yeah. So it's not too much different, but if they're all taken at C0, this is about what you're looking at.